Hello and welcome to week 6 of our course. We are making progress and we are getting closer to midterm this week. I want to draw your attention quickly to the requirements that we have for our course this week. We are taking a little break after our case study assignment, and I pretty much have those graded. So if you have not heard from me and you have not received a grade, you need to get in touch. Otherwise, those should be available for you. We have our deconstructing a journal article assignment coming up next week. So just remember that we're kind of in between two of the bigger assignments. So this week is going to be a week where we focus on attendance and reading, and I want to highlight those requirements for you here in this video. Our attendance, I am logged into my instructor setting, so this is going to go live at the required time, as I've mentioned before. So you'll be able to see this after midnight on Sunday the 24th, which is really a very early Monday morning on the 25th. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the fallacies this week, and there are some statements that have been provided as examples from another instructor in the different section of this course. You're going to take two of these statements and you are going to identify the fallacies that are involved and a brief explanation as to why. So an example might be if you're analyzing number 1, you're going to say, this is an example of this fallacy, and the reason is because X, Y, Z. So again, just a few sentences will be sufficient for each of the two, but I do require complete sentences, complete thoughts. And I do want to mention, this is our reading, let me get to the top here, for the Thinker's Guide to Fallacies. And this is an excerpt, so this is 14 pages of a much larger document. I have had students in the past that say that this is hard to follow, and if it is hard to follow, then I would just encourage you to look at the textbook. So the textbook, the Ruggiero textbook on, let me go back here to week 6. The Ruggiero textbook here on page 103 and 120 is very clear. The whole chapter is avoiding errors in thinking. It's chapter 5. And if you read through this and you make special notes and attention to the subheadings, which are in blue, then I think you will find it very easy to complete the attendance for this week. I will also note that this is the Thinker's Guide to Fallacies, which we looked at, the excerpts, the PDF file. The inductive and deductive reasoning is actually a YouTube video from a professor at another institution that he's very knowledgeable, and that's a good video. He does a better job explaining that than I could. And so we just want to give you a grounding in this type of reasoning because this is going to build into next week as we look at bias, as we look at propaganda, and as we look at here with deconstructing a journal article. We want you to begin to see where logic breaks down, fallacies interact with research and with opinion. And again, we talked last week here, we talked a little bit about research, and I think even the week before we talked about finding resources. So as you look at how this breaks down, our steps to finding and utilizing information, number 1, we have to find it. And I don't think that's the issue today because everyone is so familiar with the internet. And so we can find the information, but really it's about how do we determine if it's useful, is it relevant, is it current, what is the author's perspective on this, where are they coming from, what do they have to gain by this information, are they even an expert? So as we talked about last week with the CRAP test, it's not just enough to find the information anymore. The front page of Google is not always the best place to obtain that information. So we have to be able to find it. we have to be able to analyze it, and then we have to be able to utilize it. So that's the steps that we're taking you through. So we've talked about finding it. Again, I don't think that's an issue for today's researcher. I just don't. I think that we have to talk about how we analyze it and how we determine if it's useful and appropriate for a particular research topic. So that's where we are. We're talking again this week about reasoning, inductive and deductive reasoning, and fallacies. A lot of this will maybe strike a bell with you, ring a bell with you when it comes to politics. You'll hear some of this language sort of repeated when it comes to politics. And so keep that in mind as you're reading through this, and see if anything comes to your attention as you're doing your attendance this week. It just makes you a good analyzer of information, and it will greatly help you again as we continue to dive deeper and talking about finding appropriate sources for research purposes, and then just to be a successful citizen and a successful human as we go throughout our lives. We're not always going to be in school, but we will always need to access, interpret, and utilize and synthesize information. So that's the goal of this course. So again, just to break it down for week 6, our expectations are attendance for week 6, our textbook, our Ruggiero reading, which again is chapter 5. That's a very good, clear chapter, will help you with your attendance. And then we have the short YouTube video, and we have the PDF document, which is just excerpts from a larger document. And those are your requirements for this week. If you have not, let me scroll up here, if you have not submitted your case study, please do that. Or talk to me about that if there's a reason. If you're missing work, I really want to connect with you about that. We do have a late penalty in this course, and we do have requirements and penalties that we have to abide by, but I want everyone to be successful. So please, if something is going to be late, if you are sick, if you have extenuating circumstances, communicate with me immediately and not after the fact. We will do the best that we can to accommodate you. Otherwise, I'll be catching up on grading this week, and please look for those numbers. Reach out to me, send an email if you need any clarification. If you need any additional clarification on the materials in the course, I will be glad to do that. I just don't feel like it's necessary to regurgitate reading through an online lecture. I feel like that is not as helpful as utilizing it yourself and then putting it into play in the discussion board. Look forward to interacting with you all this week. Reach out to me if you have any questions at all. And as a reminder, if you go to syllabus here, this is my email address. So I've had some students ask me about that. That's my email address. There's also this inbox function here that should look the same for you in Canvas. And if you use inbox, you can send me a direct message. It walks you through the steps. It's pretty easy to do that. So please reach out if you need anything. I'm looking forward to this week, and hope you all have a good one.